welcome to Youth Church. I'm so glad you're here. This morning, we have Blythe Zezas reading our To the Point scripture.
Hi, I'm Blythe, and I'm going to be reading the scripture for Youth Church. What I'm about to tell you is true. Anything you did for one of the least important of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. I'm so glad I'm here, I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. I'm gonna sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here today. Sing while I'm here, I'm gonna sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here today. Joy brought me here, joy brought me here, joy brought me here today. Joy brought me here, joy brought me here, joy brought me here today. And Jesus is here, Jesus is here, Jesus is here today. Jesus is here, my Jesus is here, Jesus is here today. I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today. I'm so glad I'm here, I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble thyself in the sight of
And
the Lord.
He will lift you up. And He will lift you up. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the
That
sound.
saved a
Wretch
wretch
like me.
that saved a wretch
like me.
So humble thyself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble thyself in the sight of the
Humble
Lord.
thyself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble thyself in the sight of
And
the
He
Lord.
will lift
You up.
and He will lift
You up.
and He will lift
You up.
The Son of Man will come in all his glory. All the angels will come with him. Then he will sit in glory on his throne. All the nations will be gathered in front of him. He will separate the people into two groups. He will be like a shepherd who separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep to his right and the goats to his left. Then the king will speak to those on his right. He will say, "My Father has blessed you. Come and take what is yours. It is the kingdom prepared for you since the world was created. I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you gave them to me. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the people who have done what is right will answer him, Lord. They will ask, when did we see you hungry and feed you? When did we see you thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you as a stranger and invite you in? When did we see you needing clothes and give them to you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, what I'm about to tell you is true. Anything you did for one of the least important of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on his left, you are cursed. Go away from me into the fire that burns forever. It has been prepared for the devil and his angels. I was hungry, but you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, but you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, but you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, but you did not give me any. I was sick and in prison, but you did not take care of me. They will also answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty and not help you? When did we see you as a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and not help you? He will reply, what I'm about to tell you is true. Anything you didn't do for one of the least important of these, you didn't do for me. Then they will go away to be punished forever. But those who have done what is right will receive eternal life.
Thank you so much, Gailey, for reading that passage from Matthew chapter 25, starting verse 31 through 46. She did such a great job. Love it. So this is a parable about sheep and goats and what happens when Jesus returns to judge people. Now, we don't like to think about being judged. I mean, nobody likes anybody to look at them and say, oh, you did this right, or you did this wrong, or you did this well, or you did this poorly. But Jesus tells this story, and it's really important for us to hear Jesus' words and to understand what Jesus is meaning. So Jesus is telling this parable of separating people like a shepherd would separate sheep from goats. Now, for Jesus in this story, remember, a parable is a story meant to illustrate a point or a kind of teaching. Jesus is saying that the sheep are people who would be welcomed into God's kingdom, while the goats would not be welcomed into God's kingdom. Now, people listening to this story would be very concerned, as I'm sure you're thinking yourself, am I a sheep or I'm a goat? And so the people listening to Jesus teach this story were wondering the same thing. Well, what does it mean to be a sheep? What does it mean to be a goat? And Jesus made it very simple. Although, as is often the case with Jesus' teaching, sometimes the things that are most simple on the front, on the face of them, become really complicated and difficult when you get down to the details. So Jesus is telling this story, and people are wondering and worrying, am I a sheep or a goat? And so people said, Jesus gives this list of, feeding people who are hungry, or giving water to people who are thirsty, or welcoming in a stranger, or clothing people who don't have enough clothes, or healing the sick, or visiting people in prison, which I think is a really interesting thing. We'll get back to that in a second. And it's so funny because the disciples were, and remember, the disciples, not just the 12 disciples, but it's a whole bunch of people around. They said, well, when did we ever see you, Jesus, naked? When did we ever see you hungry? When did we ever see you in prison? And Jesus makes this really profound point. And even more important than the judgment aspect of this story, Jesus tells this really important key point that I want you to think about. Jesus says, whenever you do something for someone who is hungry, who is thirsty, who doesn't have enough clothing, or is in prison, whenever you do something good for someone like that, it's like you're doing it to me. Why is this important? Because Jesus is wanting us to know that when Jesus is present in the world, when we are looking for Jesus, when we are looking for the power of Jesus, we can see it most clearly in people who are in need. Now that is totally different than what we would kind of think of. When we think about Jesus, we think of someone powerful and does healing and somebody who is like, well, it's God. And of course those things are true. But what Jesus wants us to keep in mind is that when we see the people who are sad, when we see the downtrodden, when we see people who are struggling because they don't have enough money, that what we're getting a glimpse of is we're getting a glimpse of Jesus. So, with that in mind, I think about being inspired by people who take this call from Jesus seriously. And there's this man named Eduardo Roca, and he has an amazing story about being a young man and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole as someone who, he was sentenced to life in prison while he was still a teenager. And his story, I think, is really inspiring, and it shows the power of Jesus when we think about people, even people who are prisoners, as representatives of Christ. Look at this story.
He's so relatable. You know, he always, when we come to his service, I go to his morning devotion service he has it 3 times a week, and I go, and often he always tell me, look, you know, you all are my brothers. You know, I've been where you've been, so, you know, I can talk to you in ways that I can't talk to other people. So he's always made me comfortable, and I've taken the opportunity on numerous occasions to pull him aside and said, Dr. Roach, I need to talk to you about some things that's going on personally in my life. And he's welcomed me in his office, and we prayed, and, you know, we shared some tears together about issues.
That United States was just that type of life, you know, partying all the time, and that's what I used to do. But it hit me reality when I got arrested. You know, the reality really hit me that, I mean, I was completely lost. Hearing a judge telling me, I'm going to sentence you to life in prison with the possibility to see the parole board in 15 years. Being 18 years of age. I was going to have the possibility of being released when I was going to be 33 years old. That was the lowest point of my life. In that particular moment, a correctional officer handed me a Bible. And that changed it all. And the same correctional officer invited me to a meeting that they were having every Monday in the gymnasium of the Orange County Jail, where him and a group of volunteers from his church come to, you know, just do a service. I didn't even know what that was. That was the very first time I was introduced to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm 51 years old, and I have got to the point where I love what I do. I don't drag my feet to come to work every single day. I just wake up every morning knowing that I'm having another opportunity to influence someone, to be a blessing to someone, and that is the greatest feeling that you can have in your life. Every day for me to work for the Tennessee Department of Corrections and be the institutional chaplain of Riverbend is the best day of my life.
So we're in this time where we have this sickness in our society, this COVID-19. And Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 25, verse 36 say, I was sick and you took care of me. And I think about all the doctors and nurses and people who just are working as aides in the hospitals or in clinics or, you know, in urgent care facilities. What it means for them to go to work every day to take care of people. We've heard some amazing stories and some really heartbreaking and sad stories. I think about our own Reggie Jackson, who is a deacon at our church, and you guys have probably seen him around. Reggie, who passed away from being sick. And it can be a very scary thing. You know, sometimes when I think about it, it makes me scared, it makes me nervous. But I know that there are so many good people in this world, like Dr. Paul Stelzer, like Mary Joseph, who trains nurses like Denise Sharonfont, like Joe Pearsall, who works with people who have to do rehabilitation. These are all people at our church, and many more. Belkis Reyes, Angel Reyes' wife, she's a pediatrician, and so many other people who take the words of Jesus of, I was sick and you took care of me, so seriously. And in this time where we're doing what we need to do to help people, actually, you know, what we do to help people in their sickness is wear masks, and we stay home, and we wash our hands, and we don't have our play dates, and we don't go hang out with people, even though that's all kind of fun stuff that I really want to do. I want to have a play date with my friends. But I know that in this time, at this moment, to care for people, to love people the way that Jesus wants us to love those who are sick, we keep having to work hard and doing these things for others. Remember last week we talked about having eyes for others, eyes to look out into the world and see where there are things that are not right and do our part to make them right? Well, caring for the sick in our world right now means that we wear those masks and we stay home and we do the things that we know we need to do even though it's difficult. And that leads us to our daily prayer. Now, this daily prayer is a 6-day-a-week prayer, okay? So you do this for 6 days during the week. And it's a way to help us to remember Matthew chapter 25 and Jesus' words of caring for the sick and the poor and the prisoner and all that stuff. And it's also a way in which we can pray through movement every single day. So here's how it goes. So on Monday, each time you take a drink, say a short prayer for people who are thirsty. On Tuesday, when you get dressed in the morning, pray for people who don't have the clothes that they need. Wednesday, at each meal, pray for people who don't have enough food to eat. On Thursday, each time you go through a doorway, say a prayer for people who are left out, who are ignored, or who are treated like strangers. Friday, get a Band-Aid and wear it to remind you to pray for people who are sick or who are injured. Saturday, every time you walk by a door with a lock on it, reach out and touch it. And each time you do, remember to pray for people who are in prison. I hope you've enjoyed this time of Youth Church. I've enjoyed getting to talk with you. Again, like I say every week, I love you. I care about you so much. And I hope you're hanging in there. I can't wait for us to be together again. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in our Youth Church this morning. Remember, what I always tell you is that church isn't about 1 or 2 people doing something for everybody to sit down and receive. It's about all of us using our gifts, our talents, our abilities in the service of God, worshiping God, and in the service of others. I love you so much. Have a great week. And now it's time for our blessing song. 1, 2, 3, 4.
May God give you eyes to see all that is good, all that is good. The courage for anything. May you be strong, may you be strong. May God give you ears to hear loving voice, His loving voice, speaking all around you, all around, and deep inside. May God give you eyes to see all that is good, all that is good. The courage for anything. May you be strong, may you be strong. May God give you ears to hear His loving voice, His loving voice, speaking all around you, all around, and deep inside.